This is the Airecoler 125 Pints Commercial Dehumidifier. And if you've ever fought with high humidity in your basement or crawl space, you'll totally get why I finally decided to try out a serious machine like this one. I want to give you a quick review, share my honest thoughts, and talk about what it's actually been like living with this in my house. What threw me off at the start, and where I'd recommend it for anyone listening, or anyone who just feels like their home dehumidifier isn't enough. Let me kick things off by talking about what this looks and feels like. It definitely feels like a commercial unit. The Airecoler dehumidifier is not tiny and plastic like a lot of simple home options. It's blue, made out of metal, super sturdy, and pretty heavy. I checked, 50 pounds. That was something I had doubts about at first, especially trying to fit it in my tight basement stairway and wondering if moving it would be a hassle. However, it does have two really solid built-in handles that make maneuvering it way less frustrating than I expected. The shape is actually convenient, kind of compact for a commercial unit. The footprint's not huge at all, just about 19 inches long, 12 inches wide, and 13 inches high, which is a lot smaller than some giant boxy dehumidifiers out there. It fits neatly under my basement workbench, and it could easily slide under the stairs or even be tucked into a storage room if needed. The blue paint job gives it a simple industrial vibe, but honestly, it doesn't look ugly or out of place, especially in a utility area. People call it commercial grade, but I just like thinking it looks like something built to last. From my experience, the construction of this unit stood out right away. I've gone through a couple of plastic dehumidifiers in the past that either cracked or got weird yellow stains after a year. This metal body doesn't feel like it'll have that problem anytime soon. There's a washable filter at the back, easy to pull out and rinse. I love that because from my experience, those little foam filters or paper ones in cheap models get gross quickly and are a pain to replace. The power cable is sturdy and long enough, and the control panel on the front is really easy to see and push with big enough buttons and a bright display. Let's get into my real experience with it. The problem I had was my basement. It's about 1,000 square feet, so not exactly tiny, but smaller models never could get the humidity where I needed it, especially after we had a little flooding this spring. I wanted to get the moisture down to somewhere between 40 and 50%. That's the sweet spot for keeping mold and musty smells out. With my older residential dehumidifier, even if I left it running nonstop, the best I could do was around 57, and it started sputtering and failing pretty quickly. So I went for the Airecoler, especially because it says it can handle up to 6,000 square feet and pull up to 125 pints of moisture a day. That's a crazy amount and probably overkill, but I figured better to have more power. Setting it up was easier than expected. The manual is clear and everything was labeled in simple language. It comes with a drain hose, which was actually a game changer for me. Instead of worrying about emptying a little bucket every day, I hooked the hose right into a floor drain in my basement's utility room. If you don't know, a continuous drain means the dehumidifier can send water straight to a drain or sink, so you don't have to worry about checking it all the time. For anyone who's never used a drain hose before, it's straightforward. Pop it on the back, run the hose where you need, make sure it's sloping downward, and you're set. I didn't need the built-in pump for my setup, but it's there if your drain is higher than the machine and you need to push water upward. The controls are super straightforward. There's an on-off button, a timer you can set for whenever you want it to run, and simple up-down arrows to pick your humidity target. I usually set mine to continuous mode. There's a button for that, so it just runs until I decide to stop it. With that mode, it tries to get humidity as low as possible, which is great after a rainy week. The display flashes both the temperature and current humidity, which is helpful if you want to see how fast it's working. There's also an auto restart feature, a fancy term that just means if your power goes out and comes back, the dehumidifier remembers your settings and turns itself back on. That gave me some peace of mind, especially since we've had a couple of storms trigger short blackouts in my area. As for noise, it's not silent, but for a commercial unit, it's honestly not that bad at all. On low fan speed, it's quieter than my bathroom exhaust fan, just a constant hum in the background. On high, yeah, you'll hear it working, but it's not the kind of noise that makes it impossible to have a conversation or watch TV. If anything, it just becomes background white noise in the basement. I was honestly worried it would sound like a freight train, but that hasn't been the case, and I work down there pretty often. Here's what I really like about this Airecoler, and why I wish I'd switched sooner. Its moisture-pulling power is obvious. The air just feels less damp, and within a day, I noticed the musty basement odor was almost gone. Laundry that used to feel moist in the basement now dries faster. The humidity sensor seems accurate when I compare it to my separate hygrometer. That's just a fancy word for a machine that measures humidity. Another thing is I barely need to think about emptying anything because of the drainage system. With past dehumidifiers, the constant worry was, did I empty the little bucket? Is it off because it's full? Now, I just check every so often to rinse the filter, and that's it. Maintenance, for me, is really just about remembering to wash off that filter every few weeks, which isn't a big deal at all. The auto defrost feature is also a highlight, especially if you live where temps sometimes drop in the unfinished parts of your basement or garage. When a dehumidifier's coils get too cold, water can freeze on them and mess up the machine. The Airecoler just senses that, kicks into defrost mode, handles it, and then goes back to normal without me needing to babysit it. For me, that's one less thing to worry about. The unit feels secure, doesn't vibrate wildly, and never feels like it's about to tip over. I also love the memory function, where if our electricity flickers or goes off at night, this unit just turns itself back on and keeps working. Compared to my older dehumidifiers, which would just stop and kind of need to be reset manually, that's a small thing that makes a big difference in day-to-day life. Now, there are a couple things I want to mention that might matter to some people. Like I said before, this isn't a light unit, it's heavy. If your setup is in a crawl space where you've got to carry things down a ladder, or you know you'll be moving it a lot, keep in mind it's built like a tank. But that's also why it works so well, and isn't some flimsy little appliance. Another thing is, if you're new to commercial-style dehumidifiers, the initial setup might seem like a project. But honestly, it's just a matter of reading the instructions step by step, making sure the hose is attached properly, and you're all set. From my experience, this Airecoler 125 pints is perfect for big damp basements, crawl spaces that never seem to dry out, garages with moisture issues, or even if you're running a small storage area and need to control humidity. I can say I'd recommend this for anyone with a serious moisture problem who's tired of going through weak plastic dehumidifiers that don't really solve anything. The coverage area means you don't need 2 or 3 machines for a medium basement, just this one. It's also great for people who want set-it-and-forget-it simplicity without fussing over water tanks. In conclusion, the Airecoler 125 Pints Commercial Dehumidifier has saved me a ton of hassle and worry about humidity. The air literally smells and feels better. It's not overwhelming to use, it does exactly what it says, and maintenance is truly minimal if you rinse that filter occasionally. The noise is reasonable, and the build quality gives me confidence that I won't have to replace it again anytime soon. I wish I'd pulled the trigger sooner. Looking back, instead of dealing with years of musty basement issues, you can find detailed information about the Airecoler 125 Pints Commercial Dehumidifier in the comments section. See you in the next video.